This is Tammy.
Hello, Tammy. Daniel Ott here.
Hey, Daniel, how are you?
Man, I tell you what, I'm so good that scientists want to clone me so there can be a bunch more happy people in this world.
Go for it. I hope they do.
Well, they've been trying to stack my DNA for a long time, Tammy, and really, I just don't. Well, look, I'm not sending my DNA through no $3 test kit that they sell on the internet or TV because I got a feeling they're looking for somebody, and if I ever fit that profile they're looking for, they may snag me anyway. So I'm not going to do it.
Well, there you go. I'm not doing it then either.
Although there's probably deep, dark people out there trying to gain it, but they're not going to get. Well, Tammy, welcome to the Edge television broadcast.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And, I'm really looking forward to this broadcast because I've got questions about animals, and I've tried to get answers to for a long time. And I'd like to get various opinions. And certainly we want to talk about your book, Soul Healing with Our Animal Companions. And so I think we'll have a great time tonight. We have a couple chats out there. There's some people watching the chat on our website, and some people are watching our YouTube streaming live. So there's questions will come out of there. So as we go through the program, questions will come up from the viewers. And it may be on topic, may be off. So you got to be ready for that.
That's okay. I'm ready.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get into it, Tammy. Why did you write this book? What's going on?
I wrote it because I wanted to be able to help people, and especially animal lovers, those that get really close to their animals. I wanted to be able to provide them tools that I've learned through my practice and through my personal experiences that will help their animals and themselves heal and feel better faster so they can feel more love in their hearts. And isn't that what it's all about?
Mm-hmm. Did you have I was going through your website and I didn't write it down, but it said did something happen in your life that got you looking towards animals, or
Yeah.
what's that story there?
Well, I mean, I certainly had a big career. I moved a lot with my career. That was my main focus in my life, and making more money. And I had animals in my life that I tended to be sick a lot. And my animals were sick a lot, and I thought that was just so strange. And sometimes they'd have the exact same illnesses as me. But then in the year 2000, I went through the death of my mother, and through that had kind of an awakening of sorts as she was experiencing some things that I had not seen or heard of before that kind of prompted me to investigate a bit. And even when she was having conversations with people on the other side that had passed, I found it very fascinating. And I had an awakening of sorts. So once I awakened, then all three of the animals that I shared my home with passed. They were 11, 6, and 8 years of age, and they just went bing, bing, bing right after her. Isn't that wild?
Wow. Were they close to your mom?
They were not, we lived in different states, but I believe now that they kind of held me together until that point, until I started this new path. And so once I started working with somebody, to help me clear my energy holistically, which is something I had never done before, and I saw the benefits of it, then I knew I wanted to get into that, and immediately started a 4-year certification and to help people. I'm certified for people. And then once I started working with animals, I just noticed that it was so much faster of a recovery for them, and they just really benefited and saw value. Immediately, their people would say, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen him so peaceful," or "He just healed that," or "The behavior stopped," and I just found it fascinating.
I want to go back just a little rewind here. You said that your mother had conversations with people on the other side?
She did, yeah. She would kind of go in this kind of blank stare, and when she would come back, I'd ask her where she was, and she'd say, "Oh, I was," without thinking, she'd say, "Oh, I was talking to so-and-so." And, I, of course, knowing that person had passed, and I was just a student, I'd say, "Well, tell me about the conversation." And she would continue to tell me about the conversation until she kind of shifted back into her human state, per se. Mm-hmm. And she was like, "Well, how is that possible? They're not here." Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was really incredible. It was actually brought me a lot of comfort knowing that she would not be alone when she passed,
Mm-hmm.
that she'd have people who were going to greet her.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go too far on that point, but what did she say the conversations were about?
It was just more where she would ask them how they were, and then they would tell them, and she said that the person would say, well, once you're with us, we'll do that again. Or, it was just more like normal conversations, but they were talking about getting together again.
So did you believe in an afterlife before that?
No, I was really raised with no foundation, nothing to overcome and nothing to heal from and nothing to really build on for any type of a spiritual connection at all. So that was the first time I really saw what I feel is evidence that there might be something more to just this human experience, and then you drop the body and you're gone. And so it was very comforting to know that she wasn't going to be alone, that there was something more.
Mm-hmm. So then three of your close animals died.
All of them, yeah.
Well, I imagine that was pretty traumatic. Anybody that's close to their animal companion would probably understand how you felt.
Oh, it wasn't a fun year.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a fun time at all. It was quite grueling,
Mm-hmm.
And through that period, I also became awakened to being able to sense and feel and see energy around me, which at the time was a pretty flippy experience because that was all new to me, but
Mm-hmm.
it was beginning my path to do what I do now.
Mm-hmm. I think some people use the term that we're human. No, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So,
Right.
would you say previous to that you are a human having a human experience? Would you lend any credibility to the statement that you may consider yourself now a spiritual person to have a human experience?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we're energy first, and that's just based on the experiences and what I see, feel around me since that year.
Mm-hmm.
Since the year 2000, I absolutely believe that we're energy or spiritual beings first, and that we incarnate into these bodies.
Mm-hmm. There's two streams of consciousness that I've engaged to in sort of just randomly at times during life, and one of those is to try to imagine space, and then I want to go to the end of space. And I know anybody that knows anything about science, watching science shows, knows that really, I guess it goes on into infinity. Nobody knows where the end of it is. There's only conjecture, and
Right.
I would think past our solar system, maybe a couple more solar systems, whatever, maybe a couple of universes, we might have it right. But beyond that, there's things back in there that are so deep, so vast. So I try to get my mind to go out there and just go. And what happens is I start to feel like a panic or like a feeling of hopelessness. And it's like you can't get there, and it's like it's a frustration. That's one. And then the second one is try to imagine that, or I would try, imagine what it's like to die, let's just say, and to evaporate into nothing rather than say something. And that's another, to imagine, to contemplate that for a second is another, almost a fearful kind of a shocking thing that you're nothing and you'll never will be, and nobody would know who you are. You're gone. Your thoughts just vanish. And that's almost as scary as those two there. So it is, there is some consoling. I've had some consoling and the hope, and from what I can tell, the hundreds of broadcasts I've done, that there is apparently another side to this life. And of course it's sort of mystical, it's spiritual, you can't really grab it, but we get little glimpses along the way, a little light on our pathway that kind of says, oh, wait a minute, man, there's some hope coming up, though, so the end of life is not as fearful as it should be.
Oh, I agree completely. I mean, I don't have fear of passing. I have fear of suffering before I'm passing. I think that's what a lot of us have, right? But I don't have any fear of passing. And who knows we won't know till we croak, right?
Right.
Croak,
okay.
What happens, but all we can do is get our grasp at those things that make us more comfortable while we're here, because it's not fun to live in fear.
No, it's not very fun. I don't like living in fear. Fear has torment, man.
Yeah.
But I tell you
Yeah, it
what, man,
does.
perfect love cast out fear. That's one of my favorite things. So, Tammy, so you're talking about healing with our animal companions, and as one opens up your book, what do they start to see as you kind of move them along?
Well, they're going to start to find out more about that their animals are messengers and teachers for them. I mean, it gives you tools to help your animals heal holistically without having, all the vet bills and the medications possibly. Doesn't mean that they're not going to need that in their life, but their animals are there to teach them about themselves. And the closer we let our animals get to us, and some of us really let them get all inside and hole up in our heart, right? Mm-hmm. And those people are the ones that are probably going to be able to look at their animals and utilize more of their teaching. So someone that's just got an outdoor dog and they occasionally play with them, that's going to be a different type of experience. The closer we let any being get to us, people or animal, the more they are going to be teachers and mirrors for us to evolve and learn and grow as a soul.
Mm. One of the classic lessons that I think anybody that's owned a dog would understand is that they have this sort of unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, and it's like, I mean, if you kick them and for no reason, they like apologize, so to speak. It's like, of course, not I don't, but I'm just saying on the extreme, but as the unconditional forgiveness and love that they show. It does give a sort of a life lesson. Just that right there, just talking about that specific animal. We're talking about a lot of animals tonight. Right. But isn't that kind of to feel the perception of unconditional love from let's use a dog here, maybe we can use animals in general, this unconditional forgiveness or love that they have toward us, doesn't that indicate they have a deeper perception or awareness of their existence?
I believe so. I mean, I believe in that moment they're teaching, they're showing and modeling and mirroring for us our best self that they're wanting us to see. They want us to see how lovable we are. And obviously, if we're doing anything physical against any being, people or animal, there's a part of us that's unhealed. There's some wounding in there where we're lashing out. We've got some anger, that needs to be released in a healthy way for us to lash out at an animal at all. And for them to be able to stand in that space and say, I still see you. I still see the real you that you haven't gotten to yet. To me, that's kind of their message in that moment. Mm-hmm. It's amazing that they will hold and in that space for people and take some of the things that they do. To me, they're just tremendous teachers and masters at teaching us how lovable we should be. We should look in the mirror and see what they see. Mm-hmm. And then they've evolved. And I think then when they're on the other side, they probably get high fives. Mm-hmm. It's like you did it. You turned that person's heart around. And we all know those people, right? Who said, I don't like animals, blah, blah, blah. And then they get that little kitten or they get that dog. And all of a sudden, they're hand feeding them, yeah. And they have wormed themselves into their heart and they've changed the person for the better. And that's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. Animals are just masters at showing us how to love.
Tammy, I have a brother who has a cute little dog, and he puts dresses on her. Is that wrong? Is that wrong?
I believe they're every matchup is divinely coordinated. So I think that if that dog ended up with your brother, that they probably signed up for something, and it's all okay. It's all okay. Well, I know that there are certain animals that when they get dressed up by their people, that they just walk around like, look at me.
Well, apparently this little doggy actually picks out her dresses too. So I mean, they go to the closet and she picks them out. So I mean, come on now. Whew, maybe she's looking for a date or something. I don't know. But
now, what does that say about that dog and what she's done for your brother? Right?
Well, I tell you what, that dog is gone through some health issues, and right now that dog is really a good comfort to him.
Yes. Yeah. bring such special love in his life in a way that no other being could, that he probably may not even let anybody else in his heart in the way that that dog is in there. So what a blessing that is.
So there, that leads us to the sort of the animals out there known as animal therapy, where what they bring animals into hospitals. And isn't it interesting? From what I understand, I'm not an expert by any means, so correct me where I'm wrong. But don't people that don't even respond to the nurses and the doctors, and but you bring an animal in there is a response. Why is that?
They're safe. There's nothing safer than an animal because they don't have any issues with them. They don't have any anger with them. They see them and they are safe to open their heart around. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, there's no safer love than an animal, and animals are those are master healers that go into the homes like that. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's because people look at them and they aren't preparing to be mad at what they may say. If it's a person walks in or whatever, when an animal walks in, they can just open their heart and be who they are and know that this beam of light that's standing in front of them will love them unconditionally just as they are and want nothing from them in return. That's a gift.
Mm-hmm. Our moderator, Jade, has a cat that frequently, as she's moderating, we have two chats going on, one on the website, one on our YouTube stream. Occasionally that cat will jump on her keyboard. Is that cat trying to email me, or is that cat trying to say, hey, you're not paying attention to me? Or both?
Well, I'd have to talk to the cat. But it depends on what actually is going on in her mind at the time. Sometimes the animals can be intentionally distracting when we're working on something because maybe our mind or our thought process needs to stop. Maybe we're circulating a certain thought process as is not a positive one, maybe something about ourselves, maybe something we need to step away from and just go play. And they want to get us out of our stuff for a few moments.
Well, you know, and I can't really say that's a bad thing because in the busyness of life, you know, I think that's another attribute of an animal is they get you to, you know, sort of to stop and smell the roses type of thing. Say, you know what, that stuff's always going to be there. And most of what we do in life is pretty meaningless anyway, redundant and without purpose. So, you know, sometimes they may say, hey, I'm here. I'm a living being. Let's have some fun. You know, let's enjoy each other's company. Let's experience life together. Is that bad?
No, I think that's great. Now, there is another side of it, too. I mean, I'll give you another story that I had with my cat that passed a few months ago, Sundance. She was one of my greatest teachers. And when I was doing a job, when I first started this work back in 2000, I was still simultaneously doing another home-based business that was all phone and computer. And anytime I was on a call with a CEO or in a conference call or whatever, that cat could meow louder than any cat that I've ever had in my entire life or been around. And she would not stop. It was relentless, even if I put her in a room 2 doors down. And I finally got one day during my meditation that she was helping me because it would cause a lot of anger. That was the emotion that was coming up. And I finally got in my meditation that, oh my gosh, she's helping me see that I have a lot of anger around doing the work that I no longer love. And once I got that and then started putting together a plan of action to get out of that business, it's like from that day forward that I got it, she never meowed when I was on a conference call again, ever.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that is some intuitiveness there, it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and those types of things happen all the time, and we don't realize that they're doing something for our highest good for us to get. And once we get it, that behavior that we think is so negative will just stop on a dime and pivot. It's pretty incredible. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get to a question here from Doug White. It says, I didn't read this question before I looked at it, but here I'm just read it out. It says, did my Great Pyrenees kill my rubber duck? Duck was being an aggressive mater on females squawking in the winter terrified. I'm not really sure I understand that question. I guess he's asking if his Great Pyrenees killed his rubber duck. I mean, can you answer that, Tammy?
Well, okay, I'll go in the only direction I know to go without knowing the situation. It sounds like his dog has got a chewing thing. Now, I'm going to make an assumption based on the fact that I don't know more, that maybe the dog is a chewer or might tear some things up in the house. If so, he might have some oral, that's usually an oral fixation. Some of the dogs that will carry around toys or be over chewers or over liquors, anything oral, sometimes they might have an unhealed abandonment wound, and it shows up orally. So that may not be the direction he wanted to go, but that's where my brain went. If I was talking to him, I would ask him about other things that the dog has possibly torn up.
Yeah, who knows what's in a dog's stomach? That's for sure. Raul asked this question. It says, Tammy, should pets like dogs and cats get shots?
Oh boy, the shot question. So, well, it depends on whether or not your animal is exposed to a lot of other animals or not. You know, if they go outside or if they stay inside most of the time, and this is really individual. If you're asking what I'm going to do personally with my indoor animals, beyond the shot that I got that they, from the rescue facility, the 2 that I have now that was mandatory that they got there, I do not have any plans to give them any additional shots. I have worked on countless animals that had the sarcoma cancer from the place where they, put the shots in. And it stays in their system much longer than the year, the vet that has them come back every year and re-give them the shots. Most vets get this now. They really are awakening to it, that they're seeing the long-term effects and the cancer that's caused from the injection site. And so just because I'm more exposed to the negative side of it, and because my animals are inside, I have no reason to give them that. And I know a lot of times when people are leaving their animals in certain places, they're required to have at least the rabies. I would say give the minimum amount that you can.
Yeah. By the way, I actually misread the question there because it said runner duck, not rubber duck. But see, since I've never heard of a runner duck, my mind read rubber duck, because when I saw the R, I'm thinking of a little yellow squeak toy that a dog would have. So I guess he's talking about a real duck, a type of a duck. So that's.
So I don't even know what a runner duck is.
Like I say, that's why I say I read that as a rubber duck. But moving on from that question here, it says King's daughter asked. It says, Tammy, how do you get overweight cats down in weight?
Is that the end of the question?
Well, yes. The second part of it is to stop UTI infections all time she is peeing blood.
Oh.
Very sad,
well,
very sad.
I hope that she's able to. That is one of those. If it's to the blood point, I would definitely, make sure that she takes it to the vet and gets checked out. And I am not a dry food advocate. I think on the food chain, I've talked to a lot of holistic vets, and the dry food can cause a lot of kidney and UTI issues, in addition to, their emotional unhealed wounds. So going to it at the minimum and all really healthy grain-free canned food would be what I recommend. And then the best case scenario, of course, would be the raw. But the kitties are really picky. So the kitties are not as easy as dogs, when it comes to diets. So I hope that she is able to take and get at least the medication in the meantime to help with the UTI, to get that, and then begin giving probiotics and shifting the diet to a grain-free, healthier diet that and get off the dry.
Well, that's interesting about the shots, because you could easily have. In my mind, I was hearing the human shots that they're inoculations they're forcing everybody to get. I don't know that there's a benefit to society. It seems to me there's more evidence people getting maladies as a result of shots. You don't have to give me an opinion, but if you want, you can.
Well, yeah. I haven't been in the situation to know what I would do for children. I was not blessed to have 2-legged children in this life. So, but with animals, I'm not giving them shots for sure.
And I don't think they appreciate them anyway, really. So.
Well, I've just
But
seen them cause cancer.
do you,
I've seen them pass because of the shot.
do
And it's not in every situation. And like I said, I know at least the rabies for dogs, and the heartworms. I know some of those things they have to do, but I would just say the minimum, and then making sure that they are on a more healthy diet and probiotic.
did you ever see a movie called The Minority Report with Tom Cruise?
I think so, but I don't remember a lot of it.
There's a scene in there where there's nurse is in this really nasty situation, and it's really Tom Cruise getting his eyes replaced, but it's a totally unsanitary place, and it's nasty. And this nurse is there, and he's coughing and gagging, and she's getting ready to give him a shot. And it reminded me when I was going through, I think it was a CVS or something, sometime. No, it was a Walmart. And my wife and I were going through there, and these people looked just like that. They were coughing, vastly overweight, and they were holding up these needles. Anybody want a shot? Anybody want a flu shot? And I'm thinking, what the hell? I'm not getting no shot from them, man. I'm going to get a disease just by looking at these people. So I have a tendency. I have a tendency to stay away from any kind of shots or inoculations. But what about chips? Should we chip our animals?
Again, that's one of those things where it's mine or chip, the two that I have right now, because I did that at the rescue facility. And so I think that, you're going to weigh both sides of it. For those that get out, boy, have I saw a lot of reunions because of those chips for people who would not have had them without them. So I don't know that I oppose them. I think that they probably provide more good, but that's an individual choice.
Would you take a chip for any sort of health reasons?
I don't think so.
You're not a chipper, huh?
I don't think I'd like to get chipped.
Are you watching the show or just talking on the phone with us right now?
I'm doing both.
Okay. Now, do you have two cats?
I do, yes. Yeah, I have two newbies. They're just 4.5 months.
Okay. Well, they just made the show. Is this them?
Well, what I'm looking at, let me see. Maybe it's changing right now. There they are. They're my boys, Bodie and Rumi. Yep.
Okay. Have they ever made a show before?
Nope. This is their first show.
Okay.
Their big debut.
All right. So who's on the left there?
That's Bodie.
Okay. And the one
Bodie's on the left and Rumi's on the right. He has this fabulous little coloring to him.
Is that one getting ready to strike him? He's got his paw raised up.
I think he's getting ready to groom.
Okay. Well, okay. So cats are interesting too. Now we talk about dogs, cats. They seem to be thinkers, but I would go further, Tammy. I think they're plotters, man. I mean, I've seen them, or stalkers. You can YouTube that, cat stalkers, and man, they're hunters, but they seem to be a little bit aloof. What's the reason why the disposition of a cat is different than a dog who's like a little happy dog, but a cat is going to stalk, going to look at you, and they know stuff that that they shouldn't know.
Well, dogs know stuff they shouldn't know too, but they're wired differently. They're wired completely differently, and I think that people are more drawn to cats, might be more independent people. And then I think the people who are more drawn to dogs might like that more engaging type of personality where they maybe need the dog to go out, get out of the house and go for walks. And it's just a different type of relationship. And to me, it's whatever you want. I mean, the people who don't like cats, it's okay. I'm not going to judge them for that. But I've seen lots of dog people become cat people, and that's really cool to watch.
Kind
to
of a
see
crossover.
How they can kind of get wormed up on their lap at night and see the advantages of having this really cool being in their house.
You always have this sort of left-right paradigm in politics type of thing, but is cat owners and dog owners, are they kind of like the Hatfields and McCoys? I mean, do they kind of look at each other like, why do you got a cat, man? It's like the cat doesn't do nothing. The cat don't do no tricks, man. And the cat person, what do you got that dirty dog for? The dog just always taking a dump or something,
It could be a little bit like that, but what I have found is that there are more dog people who don't like cats than cat people who don't like dogs. So cat people I know that have dogs as well and like them both, but there's a lot more dog people that just don't like that non-interaction, but I have a lot of interaction. I've always had a lot of interaction with my cats, but I also really like the fact that I always have two or more so that they can go off and play and I can have my space like they want it as well. So there's that mirroring of the personalities, I think.
Have you researched how it is that animals can leave or escape or get lost and maybe a year or two later come back? Do they have a honing thing, or is it luck that they've been able to come back to their point of origin?
I have not researched it, but it's incredible, isn't it? That some of them, I believe that we're all connected energetically, and I have to believe that goes into play. That we're like magnets to find our way back to each other. And in those cases where you hear those stories where it's 50, 100 miles or sometimes more, you think, oh my gosh, that's so incredible. No, I have not done any testing or read anything about how that's even possible, but I believe it because I believe that miracles can happen in every situation. I believe in them.
And have there been miracles reported with animals?
For sure. One of my favorite things I read this thing a couple of years ago about a study they did in Australia. And they put a heart rate monitor around a dog. Mm-hmm. And what they did was they separated the person from their dog. And then they looked at they took their heart rates from the person and the dog, and then they reunited them to see what would happen. And after a minute, they looked at the heart rate monitors again, took the heart rate, obviously, of the person. Mm-hmm. And so what you would assume is that, when a person sees their dog, their heart rate goes down, right? And they get all loved on and their heart rate goes down. But what happened in every single pairing in this study was that their heart rates within each couple, they synced to the exact same number after a minute.
Wow. How was that?
And I thought, how fascinating is that? It has to be the energy between them and the fact that their energies meshed and blended together. I mean, those kinds of things are so fascinating to me. I have so many situations when I started early working on animals that I just sat back and started taking notes as if I was going to write this book that I didn't even know I was going to write yet, about how many times I'd work on the animal and the person never told me that they had anything going on with the dog's hips, but yet I would feel all of this excess dense energy at their hips that I was helping to release. And then when I shared that with the person would say, well, that's kind of interesting because I just had hip surgery a month ago. Mm. And it happened time and time and time again about how enmeshed we are with our animals and how much they're willing to carry for us. Mm-hmm. And then after the session, the dog was blind. It's just amazing to me.
Mm-hmm. If you've been watching the screen there's a couple dogs showed up on there.
Yeah.
These dogs clearly are happy. You can clearly see that they're happy. Isn't the idea that an animal can show a human, demonstrate happiness, that does not appear to me to be an evolutionary type thing. It seems to be a part of the consciousness or the spiritual part of the animal. Or do you think that when an animal, or if you talk about elephants, they demonstrate, I think they actually cry when one of their fellow elephants dies. Those are emotions, and emotions can't come through an evolutionary process, could they?
Oh, I think so. I think first, all animals are sentient beings. I believe that. I believe that they all have emotions and feelings, and they live more from the right side of their brain because they haven't been taught not to. Mm-hmm. So they're more intuitive naturally for storms and different things. So I also work a lot with rescue dogs. There's probably 3 or 4 around the area that I donate sessions to. And trust me, there are a lot of unhappy dogs and there are a lot of unhappy animals depending on what they experienced in their life. Mm-hmm. But their natural state, and they can get back there so much faster than people can heal from their wounds. is to be happy and to show us how to be happy and express joy. So yes, I think they're wired that way.
Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking as you were saying that it seems to me most animal misery is inflicted on them by humans. It isn't usually their fault.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of a sad thing.
It's not every single case, but that's yeah. Most of the time, that's absolutely the case.
Hmm. And another thing I was thinking about is that certainly when you look at the world, and it sounds like a dismal statement, but I mean, if animals acted like humans, man, this world would be a complete chaos. It would. Just, I don't know. I mean, if animals knew the kind of damage that humans inflict on each other, is like I don't know if they want to be human. Now they might want to be a human for that owner that loves them and shows them love. They may want to be like that, but I think there's a whole lot of humans that animals would rather not be. They'd rather remain an animal.
Yeah.
Just kind of saying there. But
yeah, it makes us want to be animals sometimes too.
Well, there you go. Now we have, of course, an owl there at the top. Owls are always associated with sort of knowledge, wisdom.
Wisdom.
That, and I don't know where that came from. Is there any historical connection to, like, the earliest time somebody said the owl is wise old owl? Is that just lore comes up and there's no real happening because an owl maybe solved a problem and that's where it came from?
I don't know. There are lots of books like Ted Andrews, Animal Speak, Animal Eyes, whatever, that really talk about animals and nature and what their traits are, how long it's been that way. I don't have that knowledge like so many other authors do and specialists out there with animals that live in nature. My specialty is more of the animals that we, share our homes with.
Mm-hmm. We've got a number of questions coming in. We'll get to some of those questions for those of you watching in the second hour. We're going to take a 5-minute break here in a few minutes. So, Tammy, what as you were writing this book, what was the most rewarding part? When you look at what you wrote, and did you sit down and say, did you even impress yourself? Say, wow, that's a story that really does need to be told. I mean, did you see moments like that as you were writing that book?
Many moments like that. I would say probably one of my favorite parts of the book is called The Higher Purpose. And it really helps people to see how in every single animal story that they hear something awful about or, an oil spill or something like that, it helps them, it gives them tools to really get to a higher place around it so they can see that there might be a higher purpose that those animals sacrificed them for. So that's one of my favorite sections of the book that I hope people connect to, because in those moments where we always cry when we see those or hear about the awful stories, it helps you pivot out of that and get into a place of seeing that there might have been something large or positive come from the entire experience and from that animal having that experience, so that change can be made on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm. By the way, like I said, in case anybody didn't hear me say that, we will get to your questions here in the second hour. I just want to give Tammy a chance to talk about her book. And Tammy, you also have a website. And before we go to break, we'll come back, and there's a whole lot of interesting questions waiting for you when we come back. But what can people find on your website?
TammyBillups.com or SundanceHealing.com. That goes into the same. So yes, go check out my website. I've got a video on there, and all my events are posted on there, as well as ways to buy my products.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a 5-minute break, Tammy. We're going to leave you on the line, turn you down. So just stay tuned, and I'll turn you back up here in about 5 minutes.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, everybody, you're watching and or listening to the Edge television broadcast. On our Newsmaker line tonight is, of course, Tammy Billups talking about soul healing with our animal companions. If you have a question for Tammy, click on the Fast Blast link on the left side of the website. Join him in the live chat on the website or on the one on our YouTube streaming video. We're also simulcasting this program on our TuneIn radio channel. For those of you traveling down the road, you should already have that TuneIn app with the Edge broadcast wired in. We're going to be right back. Going on now. Let's go back to our Newsmaker line and invite her back. Tammy, are you there?
I am.
All right. Well, welcome back to the program, Tammy. A lot of questions came in while toward the end of the first hour, and let's go ahead and start you off with a few of these here. Raul says, Tammy, do you like watching cat and dog videos?
Well, sure.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know you like to watch those kinds of videos.
Yeah.
Rather than say killer shows, put one of them on there. Here's something from Scotty Good. He asked the question: have you seen the Corgi flop video?
I have not.
Okay, neither have I. That's the first on me. I got to put a little note down, see what that is. All right, a question from 11 Reiki asks. It says, Tammy, can my dog Skip have the higher purpose of healing multiple people whose different homes he has lived in?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, an animal wants to evolve. And so sometimes that means living with different people so that they can help them differently, if that makes any sense. So if a dog lives with one person in one home for a while, and that person may have abandonment issues or betrayal issues, that dog is trying to help them heal. And then when they've served their purpose with that person, sometimes another home will manifest for another reason. And we see a lot of this because I know a lot of people that will judge people who rehome their animals and say, I could never do that. And yet sometimes at some level, at a spiritual level, they are both knowing that the dog is meant to go to another home to connect with that person because there's some business that they need to work out, maybe some karma, maybe some healing at some level. But it can absolutely be in several homes and serve a better purpose for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Indians use totems a lot of times, and a lot of times animal configurations. Why is that?
Why do Indians use totems? Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not an Indian, but
a lot of times they have animal figurines on them, though, don't they? I mean, they believe in
absolutely, and it's because it's the quality. My impression is that the qualities of that animal they see as sacred, and they see as trying to integrate those qualities. So if the eagle has a quality of showing higher vision, of seeing things from a higher perspective, then they're going to want to integrate those qualities into their life. And maybe they're going to want eagle energy. And that means that person tends to get, down into the physical too much and not enough of seeing the higher purpose of something. So I love all of the different symbolism that the Native Americans use with the different animals. And I try to integrate that as much as possible. And I do believe that nature is also trying to give us messages and help us through animals.
Mm-hmm. Animals have obviously had an integral part in human history. I just looked up animals and animal god type of things. You have the cat god Bastet in Egypt, and then I think the god Seth was both a human and an animal, depending on how he felt. He could turn into various things. But I'm wondering, whenever I see that sort of cat statue, that human figurine goddess with a cat head, and then you think about the centaurs and various Greek mythology of human hybrids, half human, half animal. Are all of those merely legends, or do you think there was a time when the DNA allowed for the combining of animals and humans?
I have no idea.
I went deep with that one, didn't I, Tammy?
Idea. Sometimes I feel like a cat, so maybe I'm one of those statues in the making.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, stay human for the rest of the show, because I can't meow and communicate with you that way. The rest of the show. I might be able to bark.
Give it a whirl. I'd love to hear that.
Meow meow meow. No, I'm not going to. But I can tell you what. I was listening to a program, and a guy said that he gets hate mail, and he says every time he reads it, he goes rare like that. So I don't know. And why is it so easy to spook a cat? I mean, they jump straight up into air. What's going on there?
Some are easier to spook than others, and it just depends on their past. I mean, they are who they are. They're kind of wired that way. I have, out of these two youngins that I have, one jumps like a rabbit and the other one slinks along the ground when it's scared. So they come in with their personalities too. So your questions are fun.
Is it fair to torment a cat with a laser pointer?
Only saying. If they get to the point where they're breathing so hard they can't breathe.
Asking for a friend.
They love those lasers. Have you done that? Have you got a cat?
No, but there's plenty of YouTube videos out there showing that.
I know they do love them. I have this little color things where they do rainbows in those little window things. And at 10 o'clock every morning in my house, there's all these rainbows all over.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll go up and flip them so they're moving all over the place. And one of my cats, Rumi, he will chase the lights all over the room. And Bodhi just looks at it like, dude, it's a light. Are you kidding me?
We have this picture here. It should pop up momentarily on your browser there. Apparently, it's you standing with a horse. Is that your horse, or you just go riding for a day? What's going on there?
That horse. No, that's my good friend Hope's horse over at the Conscious Living Center in Canton, Georgia. That's Magic. That's his name, and he is magical. I mean, she does a lot of workshops, and I'm on the board of the Conscious Life Journal, and she's the founder of that. And whenever I go over there, even though she has another horse and 6 cats and a dog, I can feel Magic's energy, and he's very stoic. He's just, if you were to be around him, you would feel something special too, and that just comes from his energy. So that's not my horse, but I was loaned Magic for the Photoshop. Actually, Hope was getting pictures done with Magic, and then there were some good ones where that the photographer got as I was holding him.
I got some friends over there at Skywatch TV, and they actually run a pony camp for abused kids. It's interesting. They take them out of their life, for a day or so, and they use little ponies to minister love back to them. And I think that is such an awesome thing to do because, we're talking in the first hour about the sort of unconditional love that animals have, and we talk about animals that are used to, for sick people and various things, animal therapy. And there is some part of us that they reach, even for the abused child who's seen so much, that for a moment, that animal takes that all away and gives them a little relief. And it's kind of a sad testimony we have to do that, but I'm glad that type of thing does exist and it is used for good. And so there are many, many good stories there about animals. And I want to ask you, and this may be off track too, but I was on Netflix the other day, and it was they had a whole show on humans raised by animals. Now that's got to take something. I think there's a boy raised by wolves. Somebody's raised by monkeys. I think there's even somebody raised by hogs. So, I mean, how is it that the animals have the capability of taking in a human and seeing that they're sort of distraught and go to protect mode and nurture mode to a human?
Isn't that amazing? They had to have signed up at a soul level. I believe that we have soul contracts with all the beings in our life that are kind of predestined. And I can't imagine, what that would be like to be raised by animals. And I believe that those stories are out there, but that's pretty incredible, isn't it, that animals will do that? And obviously that person wanted to have that experience on some level. That's pretty incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's interesting. It's also interesting when they get those kids who may become adults or whatever. Then they try to integrate them back in society. And again, I mean, on a darker note, sometimes that integration, and there has been cases where they went back. They didn't like that so-called civilized world, and they went back to the life of freedom and living in nature, where there's not so much evil running around. So it's there's I mean, I can see that. I can see that. Where it's like you're not learning what we're taught growing up and exposure to the things that we're exposed to, and I can see that desire for the person to do that. Can you? Yeah, obviously. Let me ask you: when there are videos out there where animals, where owners set up cameras and then they left and they come back at an unexpected time, but the video records that the animal has an anticipation the moment that the person is coming back, rather than say a time when they expect them to come back, say like after work, but they come back at an unexpected time, and there's video proof that animals know they're coming. What is that? Yeah. What is that connection flying out there? Doesn't that demonstrate something?
That is the energetic connection. We are connected to our animals. We are just a thought away. And when people ask me all the time, can animals read our minds? Yes, because they actually get the visuals of our minds. So because we're still connected energetically, I believe, heart to heart, when we start, they can see what's going on in our minds. So we may be sending a visual that we're in our car on the way home, or we may be sending a visual of that we're going to go eat next, or something that we're going to do, and the things that they're interested in, they're going to show up for. So I do believe, and some of them are more intuitive than others, depending on how much left brain, right brain is going on. But they can absolutely read our minds, and more so the pictures. And that's why I tell people all the time, when there's a behavior that they have that you don't like, if you continually focus on the behavior that you don't like, it will not be helpful to change it. You want to focus on the behavior you do want, because they don't get the red circle with the line through it.
Well, there's also videos of animals out there, and I've seen it myself, where they get spooked. I mean, it seems like cats are more perceptive. Like all of a sudden, and you can see, I've seen cats look around. It's like they're going along, and all of a sudden they freak, and then they look, and they're like looking at something, like maybe in the air, and then you see them actually follow something. Are they seeing into another dimension?
Yes.
Simple answer,
yes, they do.
I like your answers. Yes,
and I think cats do that more than dogs. I do agree with you on that, though. Dogs certainly have that capability. My little Bodie does it all the time. Rumi does not. And he sees, he looks up. You can tell they're looking at something on the other side, and it's pretty cool. I mean, I think young children, two-legged children, do that as well until it's kind of taught out of them when they still have that divine connection. So it's pretty cool.
That's interesting you say that, because I've said that many times on this show. It seems that we civilize them, use that term again, to out of the invisible person that they may be talking to. And I don't know if we can ever go back, but maybe they can see you use the word innocent, and until they become, we force them into adulthood and say those things don't exist, and we sort of maybe deny a spiritual part of our being that maybe if we left intact, maybe we would be more spiritual at an earlier age. A lot of us have to recapture our spirituality after maybe a near-death experience or a tragedy.
Right.
Or when we finally realize the brevity of life. As a young man, we all feel invincible. Young women, for that matter. Everybody feels invincible. But then we come to the realization that, hey, now I've got aches and pains. Now there's a time down the road. You mentioned in the first hour that, you don't want to end up, in an incapacitated state, and so I'm sure you do everything you can to have a helpful, sort of, in time, but, so you have those things going on.
Yeah, we want to take care of our body, mind, and soul. But yes, I agree with you. I think it's more that it's like animals are modeling kind of living from that more intuitive, emotional, right brain kind of state. And that's how I remember in Sri Lanka with the tsunami, how, the person in charge there said, no animals were hurt. All the animals knew what to do well in advance. And those natural instincts, the intuitive abilities that animals have, because they stay connected to Mother Earth more, they stay connected to all beings more, and so they can trust. They don't have to question whether or not they trust their instincts. They just act, and we get taught so early to start using and activating that left brain and get rewarded more for it, that it just kind of gets us out of that intuitive feeling more so than beaten out of us. All
right. Civilized out of us. Hey, I want to talk to the guy that said, hey, you got to work 50 hours a week, get a mortgage, pay your taxes, and then die off. I want to know who come up with that scheme. Anyway, we're moving on. Here's something definitely in your category from Roxy W, our YouTube chat. She says, I'm unduly sorrowful for the pets I've given up. Do you have any tips for me to overcome that sorrow?
Yeah, I mean, she's not alone. So she's got to, in my opinion, I would suggest that she begin a really self-healing, forgiveness journey. Maybe she needs some help to do that, and just really begin releasing some of that pain and not reliving it as much. and maybe get a partner in that, maybe an energy therapist, or be doing more yoga, tai chi, whatever she's drawn to. Roxy, you are human, and regardless of whether or not you feel that you made mistakes in the past, things did happen the way that they should. You know more now, for whatever reason you had to give them up. You can begin that self-forgiveness journey, because you're going to feel better, and they would never want you to be holding on to that. So that those things happened for a reason. So that's what I would suggest for her, and just sending her some love.
On the screen is our dog Orbit, and little Orbit, as he's saying, "Hey," I mean, I can read this is an owner. Where's my snack? Do you have a snack for me? So that's my animal connection.
You're psychic.
July 3rd, a fireworks was going all around our house, and the dog got completely scared. Obviously, that's not a natural activity for bombs and fireworks to be going off. In the animal kingdom, that doesn't happen. Crashed through the gate and got lost. And the amount of sorrow that we felt during that time, knowing the dog was lost, and who knows what would happen to the dog. It's kind of like you think, well, I know the dog and all animals have a limited life like we all do, but we would rather it not be starvation out in the bean field, somewhere, getting tilled under because he's there in the bean field, I'm saying, some horrible thing. But that sorrow connection was shown that we don't really recognize until we have an event like that. But that connection is always there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, when we get to that point where we realize that, hey, I take a bullet for this animal, that's when you know that you're energetically connected heart to heart, and that they have opened your heart in a way that it could not have been open without them being in your life. Is your dog back? Yes.
We immediately put posters out and on stakes at street corners. And actually, it was July 4th. We lost him July 3rd. July 4th, we put him out in the morning, and within an hour, somebody saw the poster and then was driving down the road and saw the dog. And they called us and said it was running through a bean field last they saw. And we went up there, and there the dog was. And, so we thought, well, we're one of the fortunate ones. So I guess we're going to be a member of PAWS now. We realize that connection, that other people, when they lose their dog. And I understand, Tammy, that actually July 4th is the number one time that people lose their animals.
It is. It's the number one time. And so you thinking July 3rd, you're fairly safe. But I mean, now that people can do fireworks whenever they want, you never know when it's coming. And that makes it very hard. So I'm so glad that you guys reunited. That's very scary when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, if the dog's got to pass, we want the dog to pass in a nice place where we know where that is.
Right. We don't want anyone we love to suffer in any way, and especially a soul like that. It just really stirs us up because we're their protectors, and we do care so much about them.
Yeah, and we got chickens too, and I'll tell you what, talk about protecting. Well, a fox jumped the fence and killed them, and killed all of them. I had to fortify the chicken coop, and so that's the animal world. But that fox is doing what that fox is supposed to do. That fox wasn't arbitrarily terrorizing somebody or stealing from them. They were trying to survive. They were doing what they were built to do.
He's hungry.
So I don't really have that much animus. I thought I was going. First of all, I want to shoot. I was going to sit out there with a gun, shoot the fox. And I thought, this is crazy. I don't want to kill that animal. The animal's doing what it's supposed to do. And so I just fortified the chicken coop, and I feel much better, Tammy, that I did not try to kill that animal.
Good. I'm glad that you finally got to that realization.
But
that takes a lot.
Well, it does. But then I'm going to go have me a steak. So I'm conflicted. What do I do?
Right. Well, it's all choices that you have to. It's all about how you feel about it.
And that brings me to this question. Everybody wants to know, are there animals in heaven?
Yes. I believe. I mean, again, we're not going to know till we croak. I say that frequently. We won't know, but do I believe that? Absolutely. I mean, that was actually when my awakening, when I had this big shift in my world, when all of a sudden I could see into other dimensions, it really came. My mom passed on December 28th of 99. And then my very first cat, that I'd ever had, my first pet, died 3 weeks later. And then the very next night, as I realized that my mom hates cats and there was no one on the other side to greet Kahlua, I begged and I said, let her come back and live with me. And then the next day I looked and there she was. She showed up on my bed in the same way, and that started my whole journey. So I have seen all of my animals on the other side, and I have been connected to people's animals when they left their body. And that's a pretty miraculous thing to witness as well. Wow. It's nothing like it, to see the energy that comes in to greet that animal and to honor it, as it should be.
Now that's really what I sort of admire about the Indians, that when they went to kill the buffalo, I think, or the deer, didn't they actually thank the animal?
That's my impression as well. Yes, that there's a gratitude, that it gives us life so that we can sustain and move on, and it's very honoring of what the animal is doing. And I think that there are even farmers that have that same sense. I have met farmers that, I thought, how could they have cattle and do that, and who could be part of that? But I got a deep respect from some farmers, where there is more of that heart connection. And that changed it for me a bit. Not all farmers, or not all people that are, killing animals, but I can see where there is a respect from that person, because I do think it's karmic.
Raul asked this question, says, Tammy, can animals like dogs and cats understand our words?
That's a good question. And certainly there are some animals that are better at understanding specific words, obviously, and we know that. We know they know treat, or they know car, or they know different things. But first and foremost, they recognize the energy that's with that. They recognize the vibration of the energy that's with those words. And so we typically show up and say and exude a certain energy when we're saying different things. And they certainly pick up on that. They pick up whether or not we're mad, right? And they're going to pick up on that energy, and they're going to feel it because they're very sensitive.
So I'm going to do a dog interpretation here. So we got a little orbit there. And so I would say a typical statement, I would go, oh, little orbit, come here. Now, I feel like the dog's actually hearing, and that right there is saying to the dog, what the dog is interpreting is that that he's going to get petted or he's going to get fed. So it's not that I'm saying, oh, come here, little puppy. It's hearing, that kind of thing is telling. So they're not really, I mean, am I right? Or do they actually understand, oh, he likes me and he's saying so?
I think it's a little of both. I mean, how do we know for sure? They also I do believe that they get the visuals in our minds, remember? So if we're giving a visual of, what we're asking them about, or come here or whatever. I mean, I used to try this as just kind of testing. I would look at my cat and I would just try to send it a thought. We're looking, because cats, it's like they're over there sitting on the back of the sofa, and I was sending one a thought, sending energy of come over, sit on my lap without doing any movements, right? Without saying anything, without anything. I just decided to give the visual and to call it in my mind, and it worked. And I was amazed that it worked. That all of a sudden the cat looked up, woke up, and then came over and sat on my lap. And I was like, this is so cool. I'm going to keep doing this. Wow. There's a lot of different ways that we communicate with our animals that we don't even realize. And when we can tap into that, it can be an even better relationship. But most people know or think that their pets are psychic anyway. That's just because they're picking up on our energy and our thoughts.
Okay. Doug White asked this question, which is very legitimate. It's kind of embarrassing, really. It says, why do we baby talk to our pets? And that really, I just said I did. Oh, come here, little. You see people doing that all the time. Tammy, why do we talk to them like little babies? Maybe they're thinking, quit talking to me like a baby. I'm an adult here.
Because there's a part of you that wants to be nurturing to this little love beam that, that you so care about. I think that's just normal. And we don't have to, just like with two-legged kids, right? They say just talk to them like they're smart, for the two-legged children. And there are people who think that about their they're animals as well, but it's all individual. I think it's just an automatic thing with something that we see as innocent and pure and just showing up that we have no issues with, and we just do that automatic little, baby talk to them.
Now, for those that watch this show, now, I don't know if you're saying it should come through, but right now I have a Starbucks cup. And those that watch the show knows that many times there's not coffee in this cup. So every once in a while, just moving on, that, the human will like to say, have a glass of wine or something like that. Cats, is it a good thing to say, give cats catnip so they can have a good time too?
Well, it depends. Catnip does different things to different cats. Some of them it sends into, they'll, get in a fight over it and really get them very high and wired. So, I would say just choose carefully with your own cat and see their reactions. I don't think it's a bad thing unless you're putting it in their food or something. I haven't ever heard of any catnip overdose stories. Have you?
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, cats should not drink or smoke or eat and drive. All right. Here's another question for you. This is from from our one of our chats here. It says, how long do goldfish really remember? Because mine has a good memory retention. Do goldfish have a memory? I know it's not an animal.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
So I do not know how long, but that's pretty cool that he's got one that has a long memory. And so since I have this whole mirroring thing in my book, I'm curious to find out whether or not that person has a good long memory as well. And they're seeing themselves in their goldfish.
Now, I think we discussed and kind of come to an agreement that animals definitely can perceive our emotions, but can they read our thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, they can. They can read our thoughts, and they mainly get the pictures of our thoughts. So if we're constantly, giving them thoughts of, you better not come over and beg while I'm at the table, you better not come on, over here and beg, then they may think that you want them to come over to the table. So you want to make sure that you're sending them thoughts about what you want them to do if you're trying to change a behavior that they have, and give them thoughts of sitting in calmly in the other room while you're eating dinner. And then that makes you feel more peaceful even thinking about that thought. And certainly they're going to pick up on your energy of that more peaceful feeling, and it's going to help them do that as well.
When dogs bark, let's say in a neighborhood, are they saying more than just I'm a dog and I'm in the neighborhood, or are they saying I'm in a fence, I'm at 300 Capitol Street? Are they actually communicating, or is it just as simple, I'm a dog, I'm around the area, come sniff me type of thing?
I think dogs are wired to bark, and I think it's a big part of who they are. It's the only way they have to express themselves, of saying, this is my yard, I'm out here, I'm happy. Some dogs are going to bark more than other ones, so I'm sure it's much more complex than this if you were to talk to someone that had specialized in dog barking. But my sense is that, their personality is going to come through, and then it's important for dogs to be able to bark. I hear people who get their throats, changed because their dog barks too much, and they're embarrassed by that or worried about what the neighbors think. And certainly there is protocol. We don't want dogs barking after a certain hour that, people are sleeping, but I think we need to let them bark some. But I'm not sure about all of the hidden agendas in their barking. I think you'd have to talk to each dog and see what it is.
In your book, you say that animals are sponges for our emotions. I have a lot of emotions. And actually a lot of them are happy. So good for the dog. I said it when it first rang you up there, I said, I'm so happy that scientists want to clone me because there's so many miserable people in the world so they can replace them with a happy person. But there are a lot of people out there that are not happy. They're miserable or they're sad. And is it unfair for an animal to absorb those negative emotions?
Well, I remember I said earlier that we sign up for these relationships. I believe that we're with the animals we're with, and that was predestined. I really do believe that. It's a soul contract. and we're destined. So I think that, animals are going to be more sponges for the emotions that we have repressed and we're not dealing with. If we've been crying, and we need to cry, and people will say, I don't want, my dog gets upset and I don't, I'm going to go to another room. That doesn't matter. The crying and the emotions that you're releasing in healthy ways are releasing and leaving. It's more so your emotional wounds that you haven't healed. Those are the ones that they're going to absorb more. And it's okay, because they're in your life to help you heal. One of the reasons they're in your life is to help you heal. And part of that is letting them help you heal. And so I need people to kind of, people that are more aware and they're worried about their animals picking up on some of the stuff they're going through. I would like them to give themselves a break a bit and just know that when they work more consciously on healing themselves and be more proactive in healing themselves, then there's going to be less for their animals to have to absorb, right? So that's really the gift that you can give them, is by working on your personal healing journey.
Have you ever tried any experiments like, you have two cats there, to project a thought to them just to test it out?
Yeah.
Did it work? Did it work? Did you see a reaction?
Yeah, like what I said earlier, when I said I tried to get the cat to come to, sit on my lap, and by not saying anything or not doing anything, and yeah, I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's fun to try to test that and just see. But we will project our stuff on them, meaning, if they're doing a negative behavior or something that we don't like, sometimes all of a sudden it can instill like anger in us, and that can possibly be, where we're projecting a person in our past that we still have anger around, and we're projecting it on this innocent animal, which isn't a good thing.
Some people use shock collars to train animals. Would you agree with that process?
I connect, remember, I feel energy, and I connect to animals all the time to help them. Whenever there's the fences, the electric fences, the shock collars, any of the collars, there is just, as soon as I connect to those animals, I just start coughing because of the extra energy at their throats. I mean, there are more humane ways to do it. I don't judge, I honor everyone's choices and paths, and I believe those dogs must have agreed on some level, but I hope that the people will try more conscious measures of training than using something that's going to really change the energy and the scope of the, how they feel around their throat.
There are animal lore such as the werewolf and the chupacabra and Bigfoot and various other, and of course we mentioned in the first hour about the Greek human animal hybrids and the Egyptians and their beliefs. A lot of times animals are projected in a negative light. Is that is there a human fear? Is there another part of the human experience that fears animals? And how does that square with the love and compassion of animals too? Is it a battle that rages inside of everyone, the fear love kind of complex?
I don't think it would be everyone, but certainly there would be people that would have personal experiences that maybe when they were camping when they were 6 and they did get attacked by a bear, or who knows, right? I mean, it's not like people haven't had negative experiences with animals that they're not trying to heal from, or maybe they were attacked by a pit bull or a dog. I shouldn't say pit bull, but I mean an animal in some way, and then they're trying to heal from that. And so that would certainly bring up a lot of fear. I mean, I certainly know a lot of people who have fears because they were around a cat that bit their ankles every time they walked by them, so they were scared to walk through their house. And so it's not everyone. There's more positive than negative, but certainly there's going to be people that are going to be trying to heal from past wounding as well from animals.
As mentioned in the first hour, the type of unconditional love that animals can give towards humans, it seems like it's a good thing. It's a demonstrable trait that we can pick up on and maybe see that and realize that, hey, I need to be more like, maybe I need to be a little bit more like my animal here because I'm, I have all these negative thoughts. But do you think animals I use the word evolve, but do you think, or we could maybe use the word design? I don't know, but do you think they were put here for that purpose? For instance, we have healing herbs. I mean, basically that's where all of our health comes from. It comes from herbs, and then of course the scientists try to, create it in a lab in an artificial way, but those herbs seem to be there, and there are herbs known to cure cancer, to cure colds, cure headaches, various things, like they were put there. So on the same level, were animals put there on some level for us to gain or stay healthy on this planet?
I think so. Certainly the ones that get closer to people and break out of their, nature packs or whatever, the ones that are more around people, I think signed up for that to help us heal, to help us evolve, to help us feel more love in our lives. And I do think that they are on their own path to help people. And I think that's got to be one of the reasons why they're even here on Earth. Mm-hmm. I believe that.
There is evidence that animals have ran inland before a tsunami, maybe even earthquakes. The animals react before it happens. They seem to know something. We've expressed that animals also may be able to read thoughts, that they can be a sponge for emotions. There definitely seems to be some spiritual connection there. So a lot of people describe human as a human animal, and I don't mean animal like a hater, a killer, that type of thing, but basically the organic type, the part of the human. So is it possible that we have the same or maybe a different type of thing we haven't experienced, proclivity or ability to maybe be a sponge for emotions, to bring, say, to be a healing presence to another human or to an animal, maybe that we haven't really found, and maybe we should be looking for a more spiritual life, because it's clear that the animals have some sort of spiritual connection.
The animals are role models for us. So yes, I believe that if we can all be like animals and be more intuitive and helping others and serving others and helping people see that they're lovable, being mirrors for them, they are wonderful role models for us. So that has to be, the case. I hope and I believe that we as people, are evolving as well, and that if we can take some of the teachings from the animals, we will all be a lot happier and more loving.
And that's a wonderful, wonderful perception. Certainly, I love animals. I've had many interesting experiences with animals. For instance, I was driving down the road one time, and I mentioned this on the program before with another guest, but this horse I was driving down the road, and I looked, and I made absolute eye connection. The horse was looking away, and as I drove by, the horse looked right at me, and I felt like he looked right into my eyes. And at that point, I'm thinking, wow, I wonder if that animal knows me on another level, perhaps. And is it that the animal has the ability to connect with a human, and that brings me to this question here, Tammy. Don't animals seem to know if a person is intrinsically good, if it has a good soul?
They're going to pick up on their energy. They're going to be able to see us for who we really are, regardless. So yes, if there's negative, energy in our field that we haven't healed or cleared for whatever reason, maybe we've absorbed it from somebody else, maybe we've had experiences that we haven't healed from, an animal is going to feel that energy in a nanosecond, because they just are intuitively connected to all that is. So they could react in a certain way based on their energy. It doesn't mean that person is necessarily bad. It just sometimes they can have some wounds that they haven't healed, and that's showing up more densely in their energy.
Let's bring that to a sort of experiential place, and that is, let's just say I meet a cat. The cat is normal with its owner, and I see the cat, and the cat behaves in a behavior toward me like fearful or standoffish or some adverse reaction. Using that scenario, should I then say, Have my thoughts been good today? Have I been nice to people? Have I did something? I mean, should I look at that using the idea of all the things we've learned talking to you tonight? Should I evaluate my situation when an animal responds to me like that?
I'd say if you have more than one animal, for sure, there are several that do that. But yeah, you can certainly look at that and say, I think I need to go, meditate, or I think I need to go this, and then just see whether or not there's anything that you need to clear. It's certainly not going to hurt anything. I mean, sometimes it's them mirroring something for you as well. Sometimes it's a symbolic expression of what they're doing. Are you trying to run away from something in your life in that exact moment? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There might be a scenario in your life where maybe you're trying to run away from, or maybe you don't feel worthy of, and then you show up and there's an animal that's going to act that out in some way. There's so many different levels to what they're showing you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean that because an animal runs away that you've got something funky in your energy, but it's certainly not going to hurt anything for you to say, okay, this animal's responding a certain way. I need to get centered and grounded and connected, and then see what happens.
There's a part of your book called The Purpose, and I think that might be one of your favorite chapters. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that specifically so that people would be able to look for the higher purpose in larger situations that happen to animals, where we can assume or think that animals have suffered in some way. It's like I'd look at, there was this one guy who I met a couple of years ago, and he said, we had this mule in the family, and when my mom passed, nobody of our siblings wanted to take the mule. My sister ended up taking it because she had the only, land that could take a mule, and this mule one day, the neighbors all said, everybody started calling the police because this mule got out and was standing in the middle of the street and would not leave the street. Finally, the police come, and the mule still will not leave the street. And the police started going door to door to find out whose mule this was. When they got to this man's sister's door, they knock on the door, and they find his sister in there had passed away. And so, here this mule had this higher purpose of bringing someone to attention so that he would know, they would find, he knew that his person has passed, even though the mule doesn't live inside the house, right? Mm-hmm. He had a higher purpose. And there's so many different situations that happen like that are tragedies or whatever, that once you know the higher purpose of the actions, you can look for that more, and it can help you get out of the anger or the pain or the potential relating to the suffering that the animal might be going through, and seeing, is there a higher purpose to this? Mm-hmm. And then it gets you to that where you can have detached empathy, and that's going to help you deal with your emotions more. Us animal lovers who, when we see and hear things that are difficult for us to watch, and we start relating to them, it helps us get to the higher purpose, and I think that's really important to be able to do.
I like that. It reminds me of how I try to live, and it is, say, if you have say maybe you have a flat tire, and so when that happens, that your life path has been diverted, and most of us our automatic reaction is maybe some curse words, maybe some anger, maybe some frustration, maybe we want to throw the cell phone, maybe we want to kick the tire, kick the car, whatever. Or we can look at, okay, I got a flat tire. That means I'm going to meet some people today. I'm going to be in situations that I was not scheduled, destined, however you want to look at it. My life path has been diverted. And if you look at it that way, then you'll begin to see there was a purpose for that. I try to live my life like that. And it takes some untraining, Tammy, as probably maybe your book can help us get through the kind of training that of response and actions and emotions that we've been sort of impregnated with through society norms. And I said earlier, I want to know who made up I got to work 50 hours a week, pay a mortgage, pay taxes, and die. I want to know who made that up. Who said that's a great life to live. I got some words for that person, but I'm just saying, so we're some of the things, our reactions are learned, they're programmed into us. And we mentioned in the first hour too, as well, as children, we're programmed out of seeing that invisible playmate, or seeing, something like that, or, and then, I know people say, well, maybe they're talking to demons. Well, maybe they're not. Maybe they can see it's clear there is a second dimension. There's another dimension, not second, probably the fifth dimension and above. I think Einstein said there may be as many as 12. I don't know. But if you can unprogram yourself, it takes time. But then you'll start seeing what I call synchronicities, which is that flat tire led you to a purpose, and quite coincidentally, at that purpose, something good comes out of it. But it takes some work, and it sounds like you're saying animals might be able to accelerate sort of realizing there's a second life going on. There's a second path. There's a parallel universe going right next to you where where real life is. And maybe animals can help us to get to that point.
They can. I love your story, and yes, that's a wonderful example. And that's what we're all trying to get to, is to know that we're okay in every situation, and that every experience that's happening to us is happening in our highest good, that we designed it on some level so that we can learn and grow. And animals are there for us in ways, and actually our best Earth School teachers, because we let them get so close to us in ways that we don't let people. So I hope that people can really raise their awareness in reading the book, that it will help them get to that point where you are with looking at every situation from a higher perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so much more fun too, and there's a whole lot more life in that side of it when you get there. And it sounds to me like a good medicine. Animals can help us along that path and free us up from our programmed thinking that it surrounds us. In fact, when you think outside of the box like that, try to live outside the box, the system tries to collapse on you and say that doesn't exist. Don't, here's the life, here's the bill, pay the bill. You got to work hard to pay that bill. That's what the program, it collapses on you to say. But our life is like a vapor, man. It's like a blade of grass in the sun. It's there and it will. So you've got to get and live as much life as you can. And it does sound like this book right here that you wrote, Soul Healing with Our Animal Companions, is a stepping stone in the right direction. I
hope so. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I have that book up out there. Now, how can people get that book?
You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's on innertraditions.com. I think it's on sale actually today. I don't know how long, for $10.49, 30% off on innertraditions.com, who's my publisher. Mm-hmm. So there are lots of different options. It's in a lot of bookstores nationwide. I saw it on Walmart.com and Target.com yesterday. So it's out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, after talking to you, I'm certainly going to look deeper into animals and their reactions rather than, and really, I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of embarrassed. Why do we say, oh, little kitty cat, come here, little kitty cat? And they're thinking, okay, like, I'm 12 years old. Stop talking to me like that. I can understand what you're thinking, man. Now I know they're thinking, they know my thoughts. I don't necessarily have to talk to them like that. I might say, hey, what's up, dog?
It's just a token of your love, and they get that.
They do. They forgive me for treating them like little infants, don't they?
I think they like it.
Oh, you think they do? It's that tone. Like I think you said they could get through that tone. If they can't understand the language, they can certainly understand the loving tone that's coming through.
Yes, the emotion that you're sending out to them, they're going to feel that. Yes.
Mm. Well, Tammy, as we wrap up this interview, anything you'd like to say about your book, your website, or any final thoughts you'd like to convey to the viewers about our animal companions? You go right ahead.
My thoughts are that I want people to take the one lesson from their animals, to love themselves as much as their animals love them, and to see who their animals see in them when they look in the mirror every day. Because when people can do that, then the animals are evolving in the way that they want to by being in your life. So gift them in that way. Gift yourself by taking on your own healing journey, because that's the way that you're going to help your animals feel better and get all the rewards of their life. So I thank you for having me on the show.
All right. I really appreciate you coming on, Tammy Billups. Can we have you on again sometime?
I would love it.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on the Edge television broadcast.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.